Picture this. It's 1920, and you're reading the New York Times, right?
Okay, got it.
And there's this article, very official sounding, saying rockets, actual rockets, will never, ever work in space.
Bold statement. Not quite aged well, has it?
They even called Robert Goddard, the rocket science pioneer, delusional.
Wow.
Fast forward to today, and, well, we've got rockets launching satellites, even people, into orbit every other week.
Talk about a prediction miss. So where are we going with this?
This whole rocket thing, it gets right to the heart of why we're diving into the Anthology of Balaji today.
Balaji Srinivasan. The man, the myth, the VC. Always thought-provoking.
He's all about challenging how we see the world, especially when it comes to, you guessed it, technology's potential. What's wild is he doesn't just talk about these big ideas, he gets into the nitty-gritty of how value is created.
And that's where his technology theory of value comes in.
Exactly. I mean, I get the labor theory, you put in the work, you get the reward, pretty straightforward. But where does technology fit into all of this?
Okay, so think about it this way. Remember when grabbing a cab was like a gamble? Or finding a place to stay while traveling meant stuffy, overpriced hotels?
And don't even get me started on the whole travel agency ordeal, the Stone Age.
Right. Then, boom, Uber and Airbnb changed everything. Suddenly, rides are a tap away, and spare bedrooms become income for millions.
So much unseen value just waiting for the right technology to unlock it. It's mind-blowing.
And that's Balaji's point. Technology isn't just about building stuff. It's about revealing what's possible, efficiencies we didn't even know were there.
It's like he's saying, why accept limits when technology can help us break right through them?
Like submarines going underwater, airplanes taking flight, pure augmentation of what we can do.
And he doesn't stop there, this guy. He goes on to say that technology, not governments, will be the ultimate check on state power. Now that's a bold statement.
It is, and to wrap our heads around it, we've got to look at how technology shapes what's even politically possible. Take the printing press, for example. Information wasn't controlled by, say, the church anymore.
Game changer right there.
Fast forward to now, and the internet has decentralized access to information in ways people couldn't have even dreamed of just a few decades back.
So we've moved from this centralized 20th century with these huge, powerful institutions calling all the shots to a more decentralized 21st century where individuals actually have a say.
Spot on. And Balaji's argument is that technology is fueling this whole shift. And it's not just about getting your hands on information. It's about how we interact, how we do business online. He talks about this move from on-disk to online to on-chain, which might sound a little techy.
Yeah, break that down a bit. On-chain, what are we talking about here?
Okay, so imagine owning a house. Right?
Okay, got it.
You've got the deed, a physical document that proves it's yours. On-chain is like having that deed, but digital, secured by this thing called blockchain technology for everything from your online identity to, like, your artwork. True ownership, no big company calling the shots.
So instead of just having, say, a social media profile, you're saying I could actually own that part of my digital life. That changes everything. But how does it work in reality?
Think about it. Secure digital property rights, self-executing contracts. Imagine cutting out the middleman in so many situations, even entire financial systems that exist outside traditional institutions. All because of this on-chain world.
It's amazing to think about how technology can reshape our whole world, but it also makes you wonder, with so much information constantly bombarding us, how can we even be sure what's true anymore?
It's a huge question, and one that Balaji really digs into. He actually breaks truth down into different categories.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
So you've got scientific truth, technical truth, political truth, economic truth, and even cryptographic truth.
Whoa, okay, a lot to unpack there. So each of these has a different way of, being checked, being validated.
Exactly. Different standards for different playing fields, right?
That makes sense. Let's start with scientific truth, because we're always told, trust the science, but Balaji seems a bit hesitant about how scientific research works, at least today. What's he getting at?
Well, he's not saying to throw out science altogether, but he does point out that while peer review is important, it's become a bit of a rubber stamp in some cases.
A rubber stamp?
Yeah, imagine a study gets published, everyone congratulates each other, but nobody actually tries to replicate the results independently.
So we're just supposed to take their word for it and no second opinion.
That's the problem. He believes the gold standard should be independent replication. Multiple researchers, multiple sources, all confirming the same findings.
Checks and balances. I like it. But that's not always happening as much as it probably should be.
Not always. It's like taking one study as the absolute truth without seeing if it holds up under serious scrutiny. And when we're talking about things like politics, truth can feel even more elusive.
Oh, absolutely. When was the last time you saw a politician admit they were wrong, especially if it meant going against their own party? It's almost like there's a code against it.
And that's exactly what Balaji's getting at. He says that so often, political truth gets bogged down in tribalism.
It's easier to just double down on what your tribe believes, even when the evidence might suggest otherwise.
Right. And on top of that, there's the media. Balaji doesn't hold back in his critique of how media often misses the mark on truth as well.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't mince words. There's this term he uses, scissor statements. What are those again?
Oh, those. Think of the most provocative sound bites, the ones designed to grab your attention, even if they oversimplify really complex issues. They're cutting out all the nuance for a quick headline.
It's like, if it bleeds, it leads. Controversy sells.
Exactly. And this creates a system where news outlets profit from all the outrage, all the polarization.
And then we wonder why everyone feels like they're constantly being pulled in a million different directions. It's almost like it's designed to keep us divided.
Right, and we haven't even touched on how social media algorithms are built to keep you glued to your screen, constantly feeding you more of what you already believe, even if it's not the whole picture. It all comes back to that New York Times and rockets example we talked about. They dismissed a groundbreaking idea because it didn't fit their worldview at the time.
It just shows that we can't just blindly trust any authority, no matter how big their platform is, no matter what their credentials are. We have to be critical thinkers. But if we can't rely on traditional media, even scientific journals, to give us the full picture, how do we navigate this whole mess? How do we actually cut through all that noise and find reliable sources of truth in the first place?
So much to think about, right? With all these potential pitfalls, how do we break out of this cycle of misinformation? I mean, Balaji seems to have this underlying optimism, this belief in a better, more abundant future. Where's that coming from?
It all starts with a mindset shift, really. Balaji talks a lot about the abundance mindset. Instead of approaching everything as this zero-sum game, where one person wins, the other loses, he's all about seeing the potential for everyone to benefit. I can see how that applies to technology. New inventions, whole new industries pop up. But how does this abundance mindset play out in everyday life?
So when you're stuck in that scarcity mindset, you're constantly worried about holding on to what you have, right?
It makes sense.
But when you embrace abundance, suddenly you're open to new possibilities, new opportunities. It's about believing that the pie itself can get bigger, so there's more to go around for everyone.
Instead of fighting over crumbs, we should be focused on baking a bigger pie. Love that analogy. Easier said than done, though, right? How do we actually shift from that scarcity mindset to one of abundance?
Balaji's got this really simple but powerful formula. Reduce your expenses and increase your income. Basically, take control of your financial life. Build a life where you're not constantly worried about not having enough.
And that ties right back into his whole thing about founding versus inheriting, right? What's the distinction there again?
He sees a huge difference between those who inherit wealth, institutions, and those who create something from scratch.
The builders, the innovators.
Founders, he says, are driven by a vision, this desire to build something that solves a real problem, something that creates value.
It's about having that drive, that fire in your belly to bring an idea to life.
Exactly. And Balaji believes that everyone has that potential, that founder within them. It's about finding your own frontier, right? That unique area where your skills and passions collide.
And then using that to make a real difference in the world.
Right. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the power of technology, the absolute need for critical thinking, to this whole idea of embracing an abundance mindset.
What are some tangible things people listening can actually do to start building this better future? This future where technology is used for good?
Well, Balaji's got some practical tips. First off, be mindful of your information diet. He actually recommends straight up blocking sources of negativity noise.
So cutting out the junk food.
Exactly. There's even this website he mentions, blocknit.com, specifically for, well, blocking the New York Times.
No hard feelings, New York Times, but
It's all about taking back control of what you allow into your mind. Once you've cleared out all that clutter, focus on news you can use, right? Information that helps you learn new skills, solve problems, improve your life in some measurable way.
be intentional. Consume things that benefit you, things that help you grow.
On point. Second, embrace technology. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Learn to code. See what blockchain is all about. Play around with AR, VR.
These are the tools that are shaping the future, right?
And you can be a part of that. Instead of just using technology, learn how to leverage it, how to build with it.
Go from consumer to creator?
Couldn't said it better myself.
Yeah.
And finally, find your frontier. What gets you fired up? What skills do you bring to the table that nobody else does?
What problem are you burning to solve?
Exactly. Identify those emerging trends, those unpopular truths that Balaji talks about, and then have the guts to actually bet on the future. Balaji leaves us with this powerful question. Do you want to get to Mars or just write articles about it?
It's a call to action for all of us, isn't it? It's this reminder that we all have the power to shape the future, but it takes more than just talking about it. We have to be willing to do the work, to innovate, to embrace new possibilities, to get a little uncomfortable. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Anthology of Balaji, the question for you listening right now is, what kind of future will you build?